Okie dokie, and welcome to this tutorial where I'm going to be showing you how to add some decorative numbers to your stockinette. Stocking, sorry, that might look a little bit like this. So this number here, the number 1, I actually added this after I completed the stocking itself. So after I knit the two sides, after I'd sewn them together, I then stitched into the knit to replicate the knit stitches. So this technique is called duplicate stitching or over sewing. And just to show you, this is what the back looks like. There you go. So I've literally just taken some cream yarn that I've used for the cuff and I've stitched into it rather than actually knit those numbers in. So when you knit in more than one colour, it's called intarsia knitting, and I just felt that this was just too small, it was too finicky. Not everybody would want to have a number on their stocking, so I wanted to use the over sewing technique. So I'm going to show you how to use that now. So you can do this at any point. You can do this after you've finished sewing just a single side, like this one here. You can do it when the whole thing is complete. So I did this when the whole thing was complete because I decided to add the numbers then. It really doesn't matter. I'm showing you on a single side so you can also see what the back looks like. Just because when I start knitting new things, I'm always unsure as to whether it looks right because I don't know what the back should look like, which I know sounds so silly, but I just like to know what both areas look like. And this lovely little grid of these numbers charts you can find in the pattern booklet for Knit Your Own Mini Stockings. I haven't added the numbers. I probably will add the numbers. I've just realised now. But it's a grid of 9 by 9 squares. Now, we've actually done straight stitches of 11 stitches by 10 rows. But the reason I did it by 9 by 9 is because you might lose a whole stitch when you do your mattress stitching. You might not be able to see it very clearly, and also you don't want your numbers to go right to the edge. I personally prefer mine to be roughly in the middle, so that's why I've done a grid of 9 by 9. I didn't put numbers on them because I thought, well, you can literally put this anywhere. You can put this here, right over the heel. You can add it near the toe, but I think I will add the numbers because I think it'll just make it a little bit clearer. But I'm going to aim to add my number here. I'm going to add it here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to identify where my 9 by 9 grid is going to go. And I'm going to do that by counting my stitches. Instead of using pen, let's use my tapestry needle. We're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I'm going to do my 9 by 9 there, starting from there to there. I could use some stitch markers to identify that. But I'm just going to do it by eye because I've been doing this a long time. But the one thing I forgot to do was thread my blooming needle. That would be really helpful, wouldn't it? So let's get that going. So I'm just going to add a nice little yarn length of roughly 30 centimetres, if that. Yeah, you don't need a great deal. And then I'm going to thread my tapestry needle. I'm solidarity. I'm using the tapestry needle. I'm using my polymer ones that comes in my kits, although I hate them. I know I keep saying it. I know one day I'll probably invest in metal ones, but I'm going to use this one with you because I know that's what you would be using. So solidarity with you. Right, anyway. So 9 by 9 grid. We're going to start with, I'm going to start from the top down. If you start from the top down, you get this lovely, lovely overlap of stitches. Whereas if you go from the bottom up, you don't get that beautiful definition. So I'm going to start from the top of my number 1 and go down. In fact, shall I do another number? Oh yeah, go on then. Let's do 6. Let's do the number 6. I've already done number 1. Let's do a number 6. Okay, cool. So I know it's 9 by 9 and I'm going to go in 1, 2, 3, 4. It starts on the 5th stitch there. So what I'm going to do is I know my 9 goes from here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yep. So minus 9 is starting here. I'm going to count my V's to go down 3 because I'm going to start on the 3rd row. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. Now this is the row that I'm now starting on, and I need to go in 5 stitches. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm starting here. Now, if I just bring this through, I'm going to bring it up and I'm going to show you. I've now poked that needle or stabbed it through the back of my knit going towards the front. But what you might not be able to see, and you can't see it very well with the needle inside, is I've placed it underneath the bar that I'm going to be stitching in. So I placed it underneath the bar of the knit stitch that I'm going to be stitching. And let me clarify that. Right, in fact, why don't I show you? Bring the yarn through, and I'm going to leave myself a little tail, and I'm going to hold on to it. I'm not going to bother anchoring this, mostly because I know for a fact no one's going to be handling this. This is an ornament. It's not designed to be manhandled, so I don't need to worry about, you know, tightening up the stitches. Right. So what I meant by my statement earlier is I put it underneath the bar that I'm going to actually stitch in. These two vertical lines here, if I just run my needle under them, those two vertical lines represent the stitch that I'm about to stitch over. So the knit stitch that I'm about to stitch over. Now, if I just feed my yarn through that as it is, and I bring it back down, I've actually created a knit stitch or a knit stitch replica underneath that stitch. I want to go over it. So what that means is, instead of going behind those two bars like I just did, I'll just bring my needle back. I'm going to go above that stitch, and I'm going to go behind the two bars that lie above it. So let's just clarify that, and I'll come in a little bit closer. Please excuse my nails. I know they're awful. So this is the stitch here that I want to cover in white. So I'm bringing my tapestry needle to the back of the stitch that is directly above. I've also brought my tapestry needle under that stitch that I want to go over. So I brought it through here. With all of those things combined, this is what's going to happen. As I pull that through, can you see that cream yarn is now going directly over the red? And if I bring it through, there we go. I've now got what looks to be a cream knit stitch, but actually it's just a load of sewing. How cool is that? I think it's incredibly cool. Go back to my pattern. I now need to do another stitch directly next to it. So let's see if we can clarify this. Let's see if we can get this better. If I pull it, you can see all those little holes, and all those little holes represent the gap between our bars. I'm going to bring my needle underneath the stitch that I want to cover in white. So I want to cover this stitch here in white. So I'm going to bring the needle underneath it, like so, and pull it through. Now, because I want to cover that stitch here in white, I'm going to feed my needle through the stitch that is directly above, pull, and I'm going to go back to where I started. I now have what looks like two cream knit stitches, but in fact it is just a bit of sewing. And this is how it's working. Look, I'm creating almost like purl stitches at the back. I'm literally duplicating the technique of knitting and purling, but with a tapestry needle. So incredible. I think this is amazing. The only thing that can get a little bit complicated is as you start to go down your rows. So for example, I'm doing the number 6. So let's just tick off what we've done. I've done this one and I've done this one. I'm now going to do these two. In fact, let's just do this whole line going down. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I need to go down 5 stitches. And I'm going to the stitch that is next door. So let's go down one first of all. So I'm going to go down one. This is the stitch that is directly below that cream one. And I've got to go through this one, which is next door. So remember, I'm going to bring my needle underneath it. So through the stitch underneath. Bring it through. I'm then going to feed my yarn through the stitch which is directly above. Bring it through. And then I'm going to bring the yarn where I first started. There we go. So far so good, right? Hopefully. Okay, so this is where it gets a little bit tricky. Because we're adding bulk, it's going to be it's going to start to get a little bit harder to determine where we are bringing this needle through, and the middle of our stitches is going to start to widen like this. That's perfectly normal. It happens, but it can sometimes make things a little bit more complicated. So I need to do 5. So I'm going to go underneath the stitch that I want to replicate, which is this one. So I'm going to bring the needle underneath that stitch. Now, the only difference here, instead of going through the bars of the stitch at the top, I'm actually going to go through the stitch that I have just sewn. So just hold it at an angle there. So I'm going through the stitches that I've just sewn. I don't need to go like back through the knit or anything like that. I'm going to go through or behind the stitch I've just sewn, like so, and then back where I started. That helps to reduce the bulk. So that's 2. Now let's go for 3. So underneath the stitch that I want to cover, and then we're going to go through or underneath the stitch that I've just created, and then back where I started. So that's 3. This is going to be number 4. There we go. And then final one. Well, not final one. I've got a few yet. But for this row anyway. Actually, technically it'll be a column. Technically. There we go. Yay! Oh my gosh. I just love it. I just love it. So there we go. I've now got my lovely stitches that are starting to replicate my number 6. So I've now done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And if you can print this off, I would highly recommend doing so you can really keep track of everything you've done. Or if you've got a mobile telephone, you could just screenshot it and then edit it by just doing little dots. But now I'm going to go under, excuse me, I'm going to go down 1 row, across 1 stitch, and I'm going to replicate those 2 stitches there. It's a little bit like battleships, isn't it? It's a little bit like battleships. So that is the stitch that's going to be directly above it. I want to go under this one here. So I'm going to go underneath. Oh, there we go. We're going to go through. No, see, look, I went to go through. That's the stitch I want to cover. Go through the one at the top. See, get too excited and you lose track of what you're doing. Need to calm down. Talking to me more than anyone else there. Right, get that through, and then bring it back where I started. Yeah, and that's starting my next little row. There we go. Underneath the one you want to cover, behind the top stitch, and then bring it back. The only thing that makes me a little bit sad, not entirely, but a little bit, is when they're a full column like this. Oh, it just looks absolutely stunning, doesn't it? But then when they're sideways, I just don't think it looks as good because it's not a solid bar. But it is, it's still worth it. It's still stunning. Right. Okay, so I said earlier, you don't want to go up. You always want to be going down. So what I'm actually going to do, I mean, I'm debating whether I should just anchor this stitch and get a new piece of yarn, or would I have enough? I think I would have enough, so I'm going to give it a go. So what I'm going to do, I'm not anchoring anything. I'm just going to bring my needle up to this stitch here that I'm next going to replicate. So I'm going underneath the stitch that I want to replicate. Oh, I might not have enough, but that's okay. Going through the above bars, which are in line with our white bars, so I know I'm definitely doing something right there. Bring tapestry needle through, back where we started. There we go, and that's going to be the oh, it's a lovely little C as well. Oh, beautiful. I haven't done letters. I probably should really. And then I'm going to go from, it just doesn't really matter, but I'm going to go from left to right, just because then I'm going to go straight down. So now I'm going to go, again, a bit like battleships, I'm going to go down 2 stitches, and then across 2 stitches. So down 2 stitches, across 2 stitches to here. Because it's a nice fresh row, I'm going underneath the stitch that I want to cover, and then through the bars of the ones directly above. And I am going to run out of yarn, so I'm going to do this final stitch and then anchor it. Oh, it's turning into a 6. Now we've got an odd looking E. But let me show you how to anchor these stitches. It's just like everything else. You go underneath a stitch. In this case, I've just gone underneath a line. You do that 2 or 3 times, and then on the final time, you make sure to bring your tapestry needle through the loop. So it creates a little knot. There we go. I'm going to cut myself a nice little bit of yarn. Let's keep going. I will then anchor it. Oh, so exciting. Get excited. I've done this so many times and yet I still get excited. So I'm going to pick this strand that I've already just anchored it with. You're probably thinking, Heather, why don't you just knot it? Why just knot it with that bit there? Yeah, I could, but habits, I guess. I always use the same techniques for everything because I know they work. There we go. So I've just done a single one there. Okay, so I said I want to go across 2. So I've done this one. So I'm going to go over this stitch here. So I'm going to bring my needle underneath it. And then I'm going to bring it through the stitch that is directly above it. And then back to where I started. Done. And now I've got those final 2 stitches to go. So I'm going to go across 1 and down 1. So because I'm starting a new chain, I'm going to go directly underneath the stitch. And then I'm going to go up through the stitch that is above. Oh, there we go. Final one. I'm going to go underneath the stitch that I want to cover. I'm going to go behind the cream this time. So I'm going behind the cream, and then back where I started. And there we go. Either the number 6 or a B. It's whatever you want it to be. Get it? B. I entertain myself. Just trying to see if there's a way to, but I think because I used the yarn going down, I foxed myself a little bit here. If I had, oh no, I didn't use that yarn though. I don't know what I've done then. Basically, I was just trying to see if there was a way to just raise these 2 legs ever so slightly, just to add a clear definition between that row and that stitch there, so it looks more like a 6 than a B, but it doesn't matter because I'm well and truly chuffed with that. So what I'm going to do now, anchor my stitch as per usual by going underneath a stitch or a line of yarn. Now my needle doesn't want to work. I'm going to do that 2 or 3 times. 1, 2, and on the second time I make sure to go through the loop. Oh, I just did something wrong. Ah, oh, okay. Troubleshoot moment. I pulled on the yarn, so now it's sunk into the knit. So if this happens to you, do not panic. Just use your tapestry needle and pull on it. Pull on those 2 bars to loosen them back up. Oh, I've also knotted it, but that's okay. So there you go, look. I didn't panic. There's my number 6. Really hope you do enjoy this tutorial, and as always, happy knitting. So I just finished this tutorial and I've noticed something. Something was niggling at me. I have a gap here and I could not work out for the life of me why. Instead of redoing this entire tutorial, I'm going to tell you what I've done wrong. So you may actually be able to spot it, but when I brought these stitches down here, and I kept saying, you know, battleships, you want to go down one, across one. When I went a down one and across one, I actually only went across half a stitch. Let me explain to you what I've done here by demonstrating on a new row. So if we come down here, we can clearly see that we've got 2 lines of stitches, those 2 solid V's, right? What I've done on that bottom row is I brought my needle, instead of going underneath a stitch, I went in between. So I've just done it again. I've gone in between 2 stitches, and instead of putting my needle behind a full stitch like this, I brought my needle behind the legs of 2 separate stitches. 2 separate stitches, so that instead of creating that nice duplicate stitch, what I have done is I've just stitched in between 2 rows or 2 columns of knit. So that's why these are more to the left rather than the right. So I will undo it. I just didn't want to redo that whole tutorial. I saw this as a learning opportunity. So when you are doing your battleships and you're going across, do make sure you are going across entire rows. So you want to go across the entire V, the entire V, which would look like this one here. Don't go in between 2 stitches. All right, so there you go. Learning curve of the day for both me and you. But still, as always, happy knitting.